What's up, everybody? On today's show, fall camps opening across the SEC. We'll get you caught up on the latest with some tidbits from a bunch of schools across the conference. Conference expansion continues to be a big topic nationally, what Greg Sankey is saying when it comes to the SEC. And we finish off our player interviews from SEC Media Days. Today, we sit down with Kentucky D lineman Octavious Oxendine. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Plenty to jump into. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch!
Around the conference.
And we start over at Auburn, as Thursday was Auburn's first practice of fall camp, and we got to see the quarterbacks. Hugh Freeze took turns running plays with his quarterbacks with a full 11 on offense, practicing against air, but Peyton Thorne was the first quarterback on the field, took a handful of snaps with a group that semi looked like would be the first team offense. But Freeze did say afterwards, look, they're all going to rotate through the first 5 practices evenly amongst the 1s and the 2s and the 3s. We'll evaluate all those reps and kind of recalibrate and sit down and kind of go through all of them after the first 5 practices. Now, Thorne's session, mostly short to intermediate passes, according to a couple of folks who were there. And redshirt freshman Holden Garner, he was second to take snaps. Obviously, Hugh Freeze was very high on him throughout the summer. And Robbie Ashford, who was the starter for Auburn much of last season, was the third quarterback to take his shot, mostly ran running plays during his snaps. Now, we'll keep you up to date on that. I don't know if we'll get any real intel as we go along. I still think Peyton Thorne is going to be the starter, but they're going to give Robbie Ashford a full-on chance to earn his shot here, and we'll see what he does. But the big headline coming out of Auburn's camp on Thursday was starting running back Jarquez Hunter not on the field for the team's first fall practice. Before they got on the field, Hugh Freeze declined to comment on Hunter's status. He said, quote, "I'll say this again, I understand the question, but matters related to team rules and procedures, they are handled internally, and they are not to be discussed publicly." Auburn, of course, earlier this summer announced player suspensions after conducting an investigation. They did not specify the players that were suspended after a purported sex tape circulated on social media. Of course, Hunter rushed for almost 700 yards and 7 touchdowns last season, and his career rushing ranks 41st among Auburn career running backs, and he could certainly climb up that list. Had some memorable moments throughout last season, especially when Cadillac Williams took over. We saw more of a focus on the run game with he and Tank Bigsby, but Jarquez Hunter not on the field first day of camp for Auburn. We'll see how long he's out. Will that lead to suspension in the season? All that kind of stuff. We'll find that out in the coming days to weeks. Meanwhile, over at Alabama camp on Thursday, the Tide opened their preseason camp. And Nick Saban, loving his cake analogies, brought that up again when referring to his quarterbacks. He said, look, you're going to ask me about the quarterbacks every day. Every day I'll tell you the same thing. Everybody's getting reps at that spot. Somebody's got to take the bull by the horns. Someone has to separate themselves. When that happens, we'll tell you. We'll be glad to tell you. When we're going to take the cake out of the oven, we will tell you when it's time. But until then, there's really nothing to talk about there. So, of course, Jalen Milroe, Ty Simpson, and Tyler Buckner, all eyes on those guys as Buckner came in as a transfer from Notre Dame. Bryce Young, or rather Milroe was Bryce Young's primary backup last season. And Ty Simpson, a guy a lot of people believe has the skill set that can lead this team. Now, Saban said Buckner and offense coordinator Tommy Rees's relationship was helpful to evaluate him and decide that they wanted him to join the team. He said Tommy knew the guy better than anybody could know him. Coached him for a couple years. Buckner was injured last year, so he didn't get as much experience. I think he started a couple games, played fairly well. Tommy knows him better than anyone else could. Head coach did note that Buckner is adjusting to his new surroundings. He said, I think he's probably still getting comfortable with all those players around him because the other quarterbacks have been around these guys a little bit longer. Alabama's preseason camp going to run through August 26th. Now, there was one other note roster-wise for Alabama. Two players injured, Tyu Jones-Bell and Jam Miller. Now, Jones-Bell is a reserve receiver, no longer listed on the active roster, has a medical issue, and according to reports is going to medical this year. Saban did say Jamarian Miller, he said, will be out for a couple days with a strained quad. So we'll see when he gets back out there. Of course, Alabama's running back room is loaded with Jace McClellan, Roydell Williams, Justice Haynes, the freshman everybody's high on, Richard Young, freshman. So plenty of reps to go around there, but we'll see when Jam Miller gets back in there. But really what drew headlines yesterday evening was how Nick Saban left his first camp press conference. This was a tweet by Nick Kelly of the Tuscaloosa News, catching Nick Saban leaving the podium with a huge grin on his face. Now, everybody took to social media to say, this can't be a good thing. Why is Nick Saban smiling like that? He never smiles. So take it for what you will. Is it a devious grin? Is something going on there in Alabama? Is there something we don't know about that Saban does? Let the conspiracy theorists run. But just kind of a funny moment. Nick Saban, huge grin leaving the podium after his first practice. That usually spells trouble for everybody else. All right, in other camp news, over at Florida, they are 3 days into their fall camp. Billy Napier spoke with the media yesterday. He said that the leadership on his team is really developing. He said, I really like this team, respect their approach to accountability. We talk about telling each other the truth, being consistent in that, living the truth, telling the truth, being able to take the truth. And I think this group is in a good place. There were several injury updates. Linebacker Shamar James suffered a lower body injury, was banged up this week. Napier said he's day-to-day. James played in all 13 games last season, started 4 of them. He said that linebacker group, very competitive, one of the more competitive positions on our team. The growth we've seen, the maturity we've seen, to take a guy like Scooby Williams, who's made tremendous progress, Derek Wingo coming back from injury, and then you throw in Taraja Mitchell, Manny Nunnery, Jaden Robinson, obviously a freshman. All those guys have been here going back to January. It's a very competitive room. One other note on Florida, offensive lineman Lindell Hudson was in a car accident and is in concussion protocol. Napier said he expects to get a couple of players who suffered soft tissue injuries back soon. Tongue twister, including Trey Wilson, among others. So we will see as Florida continues camp there. I expect a much better Florida team this year. That's just me. And over at LSU, Brian Kelly talking about his team and building a foundation. He said the realistic expectation, there's a number of veterans back here. They're able to recognize how to prepare in terms of coming to practice. And we have realistic expectations across the board for everybody, and we hope these guys make that jump. He said the strength of this unit is returning guys who are SEC players. Playing in this league requires more than just athleticism. You pointed out his safeties all having a lot of SEC experience. And one more roster note from Brian Kelly talking about running back John Emery was not present at practice. He said he was finishing up an internship from this summer. Was his last day and should be back out on the practice field on Friday. So LSU picked by a lot of people to win the West this year yet again. We'll see if they do that. And there's just a couple of teams over at starting up their SEC camp coming up next. We'll hit on a few more schools as we go around the conference. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Like I said, coming up next, we'll continue to go around the conference with tons of other schools hitting the practice field this week. First, I want to remind you about our friends over at LinkedIn Jobs. Look, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager if you have a small business, and you want to be 100% certain that you get access to the best qualified candidates. That's why you got to go check out our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. They are helping you find the right people for your team faster and for free. We've been telling you all the time, it's super easy to do. You just go to the website, you post your job, you add the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile. That's going to spread the word that you're hiring. And you'll get access to some great tools like screening questions, going to make it easy for you to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you want to interview and hire. It is why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires against leading competitors. It's LinkedIn Jobs. They're going to help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Go post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Going along here, Locked On SEC. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. You want to check us out throughout next week. Of course, we'll be bringing you more headlines and tidbits from fall camp, as just about every SEC school getting underway. If they haven't already, they're doing it today. And we'll have some headlines to bring you all throughout next week. All right, let's jump back into it as we continue to go around the conference with teams that are hitting the practice field this week. And over at Georgia, guys like Rara Thomas settling into their new surroundings over there at Georgia as the Bulldogs looking to go for their three-peat this season. Now, hitting the podium yesterday was linebacker Jamin Dumas-Johnson, who was arrested this offseason for reckless driving. And he spoke with the media to address that. He said, look, just taking it day by day. For me, I'm definitely disappointed in myself. And some of the decisions I've made, I've been disciplined for that. Just really looking forward to moving on from it. I made a bad decision, take full responsibility for what I did, and we'll just take it day by day and work to move forward. Now, Dumas-Johnson started all 15 games last season, was the second leading tackler on the team, and he's owning the mistake he made. University of Georgia police charged him with misdemeanors of racing and reckless driving back on January 10th. And he received 12 months probation, had to pay a fine, all that kind of stuff. He said since the incident, there's been other traffic-related cases around the Georgia football team. Dumas-Johnson said, there's no culture about speeding. Mine was before everything hit the internet, stuff like that. I definitely don't think it's a culture that we've created, just some bad choices, and we're making that right. So, look, Georgia is a very talented team. If they can get all the off-the-field stuff, which obviously it's exacerbated. It makes more headlines when you're in the national spotlight like Georgia is. But football-wise, look, they're in great shape. You add Rara Thomas and Dominic Lovett and guys like that to your roster with 4- and 5-star talent all up and down the roster already. Georgia's going to be just fine. Over at Mississippi State, the Bulldogs reported back to campus on Thursday and officially opening a preseason today. One of the guys that is looking to have a big year is wide receiver Jaden Walley, a veteran wide receiver on that group who's appeared in 37 career games, has made 25 starts. And look, they've got tons of guys up and down that roster, from Tulu Griffin, Xavier Thomas, Justin Robinson, Creed Whitmore. There's just guys up and down the roster. Wally said, look, I know we have a chance to be special this year because we got a lot of depth. That's what we haven't had in the past, he said. With Creed, phenomenal player, Tulu, Xavier, J-Rob, just the whole room of receivers is a bunch of competitors, and I think we're going to be really good with those guys. They've got weapons all over for Will Rogers to throw it to, and I think they're going to run the ball really well as well this year. And I just think Mississippi State, very dangerous team you don't want to mess around with. A few other notes. Mississippi State will return to the once yearly tradition, holding a few of their practices at the South Farm. And according to a report, a big reason why Zach Arnett is doing it is taking feedback and input from those around him. He said, quote, I'm a history major, not nearly some deep thinking intellect, but I do think past performance in history and all of that is meant for us to study and learn from. So I can look back at the most successful years here and the most successful recruiting classes. If we can gain some info and knowledge from that, it would be stupid of me not to do that. So watch Mississippi State to have a few practices over at the South Farm. Over at South Carolina, Shane Beamer welcoming in an elite talent in Nicholas Harbor, or Nick as he goes by, 6'5", 230-pound athlete hitting campus this week, and talked to reporters for the first time talking about coming to South Carolina and how he's handling everything. He said, look, I would say like handling it, you just can't let it get to your head. I don't want to see myself as a larger-than-life superstar. I'm just a regular 18-year-old kid. He did say his excitement is through the roof about starting camp today. There was a lot of speculation on what position he's going to play. Look, he's a track star, elite speed, and the Gamecocks are, of course, working to develop him as a wide receiver to utilize that speed and try to stretch the field. He said he's still learning about the receiver position, how to read defensive coverages, all that kind of stuff. Shane Beamer said early impressions are he's a fantastic young kid, unbelievable person, keeps me on my toes because he's always critiquing my shoes or whatever I'm wearing. So high expectations for Nick Harbor coming as a true freshman there for South Carolina. Over at Ole Miss, they officially kicked off their training camp this week with their opening practice on Wednesday. Lane Kiffin talking with the media said it's great to be back. As we've talked about, this is almost a roster that's half new from last season, a lot of work to do, and a lot of excitement with some new players. Ole Miss currently has 28 new transfers and 28 true freshmen on campus, combined with the 21 returning Rebels who had transferred to Ole Miss in years prior. That puts the current roster total of transfers at 49. And with training camp underway at Ole Miss, the battle for the starting quarterback is underway, and a lot of eyes on, of course, those quarterbacks. And Lane Kiffin said, look, all four guys out there are getting reps, rotating through all the different units. It's definitely as deep as we have been here to have that much competition at a lot of different ages. Jackson Dart figures to be, the favorite. Spencer Sanders, of course, coming in from Oklahoma State, a lot of years of experience. That is going to be the hot topic here the last couple weeks before we get into the season. Who's going to be Ole Miss's starting quarterback? I think it's Jackson Dart, but we will see. Other notes, Greg Sankey and the SEC, will they expand? A lot of stuff happening here. We know that USC and UCLA are leaving the Pac-12 to go to the Big Ten next year. We know that Colorado is headed to the Big 12. And according to sources from yesterday, Arizona in deep discussions with the Big 12 about joining their league. Pete Thamel said some finality is expected in the near future. There's an Arizona Board of Regents meeting Thursday night. That was last night. So a lot of stuff going on there. And Greg Sankey asked about future expansion of the SEC. He has stood by that they are going to stick with 16. On Wednesday, Florida State President Rick McCullough said that the Florida State Seminoles would consider leaving the SEC if radical changes to the league's revenue distribution are not considered. Heather Dinich asked Greg Sankey Wednesday, would they have any interest in Florida State? He said, I've been clear. We are focused on our growth to 16 as we bring in Oklahoma and Texas next year. Further expansion has not been a central topic in the SEC other than regularly updating our campus leadership. We are proud of the stability of the SEC and incredibly excited about our future. So Sankey didn't give a no. Of course, I think they're always listening. I don't think they're actively seeking anybody, but Florida State wants to call and say, hey, we'd love to come to the SEC. I'm sure they will listen and consider options down the road. So there you have it. That's the latest going on around the conference. Again, we'll get you guys caught up with more camp updates from over the weekend, all that as we head into next week. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, don't want to miss it. Our conversation with a great young man for the Kentucky Wildcats on their defensive line, Octavious Oxendine. That's coming your way in just a sec. But first, I want to remind you about our friends over at eBay Motors. For a championship team, it is all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. And it's the same way it comes to your car. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you're looking for parts and accessories, you want to head over to eBay Motors. They've got the eBay Guaranteed Fit that is going to make sure every part you need fits just right the first time around. You just go to their website, you put your car in there, you go to the My Garage section, and then you're going to look for the green check, and that's going to let you know if that part will fit your car or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence, the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you're going to be back in the game in no time. And it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. So go get the right parts, get the right fit, and get the right prices over at ebaymotors.com. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Another Kentucky Wildcat jumping in the mix with us. It is Octavious Oxendine, senior defensive lineman for the Kentucky Wildcats. What's going on, man?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good to catch up with you. And, man, Kentucky, you guys have been on a little bit of a run here in this Mark Stoops era of elevating the program, competitive football games week in and week out. And y'all got a squad here. Looking on paper in 2023, you got to go prove it. But y'all got a squad here.
No, for sure. I feel like we definitely have a squad, and I feel like everybody's doing what they need to do to definitely prove it this upcoming season. We had a great spring ball. Everybody's been working out hard, hitting the weights hard in summer. So I'm excited to see what we do up here in camp kind of coming up.
It's exciting to get JJ back. I know he's, had a battle with injuries and stuff like that, but getting him back, him and you, I mean, y'all have to be two of the big leaders on that defense this year, right?
Yes, sir. Just the communication part of it, and it was a blessing for him coming back. Just for him just being able to do the communication part of it, just because he's not always pass rushing. Sometimes he's dropping back, and he's a great leader on just having that energy part of it. Like, you might just look at him on third down, and he's going to have that look in his eye where he wants to go get that sack. So it's going to give you that energy that push to meet him back there. So
yeah,
he's definitely one of those guys you want to play around and be around.
What's it like, Brad White, being the DC? What's he brought so far?
Definitely the energy. You gotta punch that clock when you're around Brad White. If you're not punching that clock, he doesn't want you around for sure. So if you're a competitor, you're gonna make it in our defense, and it's just something that we just preach day in, day out. Just be consistent. If you're consistent, you can make it in our defense. You make it in our offense. It's just punching that clock, focusing on that blueprint, and just focus on the task at hand. You're gonna get the job done.
I look around that defense. I see a lot of juniors and seniors, so a lot of depth and a lot of guys who've played a lot of football. What's going to be the strength of this defense this year?
Honestly, just like you just said, like them faces that came back, like even the ones like you said with injuries. JJ had a little bit of injuries last year. He's 100%, and hopefully he stays 100%. We got Jalen Geiger back in the back end, Jordan Lovett, a lot of just strong guys that know the game of football right now and know how Brad White wants to play the game of football. And I feel like that's another big thing that we have is just the older guys just not. Coach White doesn't have to yell at us to have energy today. Hey, go fly around to the ball, just because the older guys are going to tell the younger guys that. And then once everybody buys in, it's just like a little trickle effect, like he calls it. And it's just, we all bought in.
How exciting is it to have, obviously, so many of these offensive pieces back, but you bring back Eli Cox, Jager Burton, Kenneth Horsey, and then you bring in some transfers in Marcus Cox, Cortland Ford. This offensive line looks pretty strong.
No, for sure. I feel like they're definitely getting back to that big blue wall. And I feel like it's just something that they needed to do. And I feel like that's something that they're focusing on. Coach Stoops always tells us, focus on the task at hand. And I feel like that wall, like they know that they need to get back to that. So Eli Cox has been doing a great job having them in the film room, just learning things. And another thing I want to say is just the transfers. Like, the new faces that we have, they're new faces, but they're definitely old faces in the game of football. So they know the game of football in and out. It's just coming into our system and playing it. And I definitely say Cortland and Marquise Cox can do it.
You lose two big guys like Will Levis and Chris Rodriguez, and two guys who meant so much to your program the last couple of years. But to go get guys who are proven, like Devin Leary, who tore it up at NC State, and then Ray Davis, who was one of the leading rushers in the SEC last year at Vanderbilt, those are two big guys to fill those holes.
So I feel like that goes back to the thing, like, just focus on the task at hand. Like, and those guys have been doing that. Like I said before, Devin Leary's been doing everything off the field to really to do what he needs to do. Ray Davis has definitely been doing everything off the field for him to have a season he can in the SEC. He already did it. They both done it other places. It's just coming into our system and doing it how a great offensive coordinator wants to do it. We have Liam back this year, and I feel like that's the great mastermind they all just have to buy in and listen to.
Yeah, huge. One of the biggest moves of the offseason, getting Liam Cohen back. And obviously what he did with Will 2 years ago in the whole system, I mean, it took it to another level. And now you got even more weapons. I mean, y'all have had good receivers in the past, but Tavian Robinson's back, Barry and Brown, Dane Key. I mean, this might be the best receiving core y'all had in a while.
You just gave me chills for sure. Just hearing the name goes all my guys, man. You guys 6, 2, and 9, man. We got a lot of other wide receivers too. We got DeKale Crowder. We got a lot of guys that's coming in. Even Anthony Brown, he's a freshman coming in, but he has that same spark just like Barry on. I feel like we're very deep right now, and I feel like we're like that at a lot of positions. And just stay healthy, man, and just keep punching that clock. And I feel like we'll all tie together. We'll be a big chain link this year.
Yeah. Well, you like how the schedule sets up. You guys get Ball State to start off, but a couple of weeks before you get into SEC play to kind of settle everybody in.
Yes, sir. I feel like it's the best way to do it, honestly. I mean, you can do it a lot of different ways, but I feel like everybody needs to get their feet a little wet. And it's always games of football. I'm not down on any team that we play. Like I said, we always focus on the task at hand, and when you don't, you lose that week. So, because it's a competitive game. Like every school you play, they know how to play football. You can go lose to anybody. So, honestly, it's good to have it like that, but you just know, like, we always have that extra oomph and that extra feeling, and we just know we have to practice a little bit harder just to just for that SEC week. You get your blood boils a little bit more just because you know what it is.
Kroger Field has gotten live here in recent years. It's the home field advantage. You can feel it. And y'all got some big games at home this year, including that team from Florida is coming into Lexington, and I know that one means a lot.
Yes, sir. It always means a lot. There's a lot of games on our schedule that means a lot. I feel like every team that we ran into, it turned into a rivalry. I don't know why, but something about Kentucky. I feel like we put that ick on a lot of people. But it's just great, man. I love football, and that's something that we're always talked about on the defense side of the ball. It's just competing. And I feel like just day in, day out, you get to compete. Then you get to go out there on Saturday, and Coach always says Saturday's for the guys, Saturday's for the boys. So you go out there for 60 minutes, man, and just play great football.
When Octavious Oxendine is not playing football, what are you doing?
Fishing, man. Fishing or drawing, man. I'm not going to lie. Fishing is, like, I always did it, but lately I just feel like as I got older, it's really been like a calm and cool, just like something I can do every day.
Fishing in the pond or the lake? Or
oh, no, we fish for real. Yeah, we fish for real. We're trying to catch everything out there. We're trying to catch the carp, trying to catch the catfish, man, the bluegill. Anything we can catch, we're trying to catch it, cook it.
Okay, I was going to ask, you bring them back and you cook them?
Oh, yeah, for sure. My mom's down south, man. She's South Carolina, big South Carolina. She likes fried catfish, everything like that. So if I catch some out there on the lake or pay lake, bring it to her. She's going to cook it up for us.
What's the best thing she cooks?
So my favorite meal from her? Oh, it's too many. Too many meals from her. I love everything she cooks. But I say when I come home, it's a weird combination, but chicken Alfredo is always my favorite. So I ask for chicken Alfredo, then I always ask for pork chops, mac and cheese on the side. It's like the biggest side you can ever ask for, but it's the side. It's the side. The pork chops, mac and cheese, the side.
Pork chops and mac and cheese on the side.
Big glass of Kool-Aid sweet tea. Oh yeah, I'm living right there. That sounds like heaven.
That is some good eating. What about around Lexington? What do you do in your free time?
Just enjoy the scenery. Honestly, sometimes Josh Pascal, as everybody knows, he used to go Kentucky before he got drafted to Detroit. He honestly just made me big on enjoying life, like the little things. Like before college, you could never catch me riding around in my car windows down, looking at big buildings and going around and finding the biggest houses in Lexington and stuff like that. But it was just something he put into me, and it was like kind of like a manifestation thing, like just run around, look at what you want to get one day. So we'll go right around, see big houses, just a lot of farmland, stuff like that. Just calm you down.
Coach Cal's house?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Every now and then you patch his house. You want to go play basketball outside. Yeah.
That's basketball, too. They're loaded. This recruiting class coming in.
Oh, yeah,
that's
for sure.
Exciting.
Hey, shout out to the guys, though, for sure. I really shout them out. They're doing good right now. They just left Drake's house, I think.
Oh, wow.
A couple of days ago there. They was up in Canada hooping, man. They was holding it down.
You could have went up there.
I'm on saying, hey, Coach Cal, put me at center, man. I play center. Get you some buckets.
You like Keelan? You been over there?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I went to Keelan a couple of times. Got my cowboy boots.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Do you go cowboy hat, too? Or?
1 year I did.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 years ago I went cowboy hat. Last year I just went boots.
Very
nice shirt. Yeah,
I love Keelan. My wife went to Kentucky, so every time we go up there, we got to make a stop off and bet on some horses. You know, Will Levis had an NIL deal. He got a horse. We got to get you a horse.
No, for sure. I was just talking about it with your guy. He was talking about horse racing and stuff like that, and I was telling him my roommate's actually a writer, and so he does everything like you guys do, stuff like that. And he's
the low guy.
Yeah. Okay. He's working his way up right now. Hopefully we get him here one day.
Yeah.
Shout out my guy though, but he's working on that right now, but he's definitely started doing horse racing and stuff like that. So every time he come home, he has a different story for me about like the price of a horse or like how expensive they are, or like Secretary's. He's seen Secretary's grandson or something like that, things like that. So
if you had a horse you could name it, what would you name it?
Ooh, man.
Ox?
I feel like that's too generic.
That's too easy.
Yeah, it's too easy. I feel like we got to go something different. I got to get back with you.
All right, think about that one. He is Octavious Oxendine. Good to talk with you, man, and best of luck this season. All right.
Appreciate you.
All right, more right after this. All right, thanks so much to Octavious Oxendine. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. And shout out to our everydayers. Come back on Monday. We'll be recapping all the action from the start of fall camp across the SEC. We'll get you caught up on injuries, quarterback battles, notes, all the takeaways from the weekend that was across the SEC. We'll have it for you right here on Locked On SEC. Started Monday and throughout all next week. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. We'll talk to you guys on Monday.